proplasmos technique here, so no underpainting, just go straight in. So all you need is umber, raw umber white, and a bit of black. You don't need to mix the black in with the main mixture, but you use that to emphasise shadows and things like that. So what you do is you zoom in and discern what the proplasmos is. So you see basically four different stages. You've got the proplasmos, which is out there, that's painted everywhere. And then you add a bit of white to that, you've got these big waves, then more white, and you've got the ripples. But then you go back in with the black and umber to put your shadow in. So that's your main approach. It's a good idea to put your vinyl or your sort of shadowy colour underneath everything, so that you feel the beard not sort of replacing the skin, but grows on top of the skin. So you might even have a bit of the shadow of the flesh shown through in certain places. So
just raw umber and white.
Just follow white. Yeah. So you want it. It's got a cover, but you don't want it too opaque, because you especially on the edges a little bit soft. You want a bit of a transition. So it's better to sort of have it so it can be layered up in 2 or 3 layers, so your edges are a little bit on the soft side. Just to get a feel for it, make your brush strokes go in the right direction. It's very important you have this gap here so that you get a sense of the beard and the flesh joining. If you bring them right up like that, it's sort of closing off the flesh. When you smile, the moustache is going to be pushed out a bit. So if you have your moustache like that, it looks rather glum, but when you smile, it'll push it out a bit. See what I mean? Like that. So make sure you've got that slight change of angle there where the end of the lip is. A young person will have more flesh here. So you can see here, she's more flesh showing there. Whereas the older the person is, the denser the beard, and therefore there's hardly any flesh apart from the lips. Sometimes with older men you actually don't even have the top lip shown, it's the moustache covers it, so watch out for that.
Because lips get thinner with age.
I think it's just the beard gets thicker. Well, at least that's the custom, as it were, of depicting older men. This is quite important. You have a bit of a gap there, then you have this beard on the chin, so that basically any beard would have that sense of this one here, for example. So you got that there. Sometimes it comes down, but that's quite important. The thing is to break it up into large areas. So study it first to see what the areas are. This one here, for example. You've got that. You've always got your moustache, of course, coming down. You've got that, and then they're more or less the same, these hunks here, whereas other ones, this one here, for example, that's one, that comes around as one there, bouncing a bit. That's sort of one, and that's coming around there. So just analyse it first, because you're going to establish these main forms at this proplasmos stage. So it can't emphasise enough how important it is to analyse the main shapes. Okay, so once you've got that right, then add some white to that, and probably need a smaller brush, or at least a brush which is good enough for you to make smaller areas for your next highlight. Probably keep that on the side there in case you need to go back and put some to the side and add some white in. So here, on the average, I'd say about 70% needs to be covered with this. See, people tend to make these next ones too thin. So you can see there you need enough width for you better get a white in. So looking at that area there, probably about 70% is the next one. And these don't go right to, if that goes right to the end there, you've got the sudden jump up to the white, whereas as it is, you've got this dark bit of black, middle, medium and light. So keep them away from the edge. Get a nice sharp point. With most of these, that's the sort of movement you want, sort of thin, thick, thin. But you really got to have a brush with enough belly to it, so you get good thickness. There's no use using a tiny, thin brush, because you won't be able to get the right thickness. Finishing in a point with most of these is important to get the idea of rising out of the background. These aren't usually the same length. You see here they get longer and longer. Because that's darker, you see more of this showing. That's closer and that's further away, so that's why you want more dark showing there. Try to train yourself to think of what's forward and what's back. So what's forward is going to be lighter. And what's back is going to be darker. As it stands, they're too thin, aren't they? So do them again a little bit fatter. I might actually go in for a more translucent. Just notice there. See that there? That's, I suppose it's the first one, but more dilute. So it's not as light as that. So if you're doing a smaller beard and you're copying off a larger icon, don't feel obliged to put the same number of sections in. You know, that's got 1, 2, 3, 4. It's quite a large icon, this. But if you're doing a small one, create the same form, but just with 3 sections rather than 4 or 5. See what I mean? As you go, you need more opaque paint and generally a smaller brush and sharper delineation, less soft endings. At some stage you may feel it's getting a bit too ghost-like, so that's when you can go in with umber and black to sort of establish form a bit more clearly. Which you don't want your highlights sort of floating around in space. It's all got to have form to it. So while that's drying, Someone got a rag? I forgot to bring one. If there's something I forget. Oh, thank you. So while that's drying, we'll get some blackened. So make two mixes. Perhaps go in with your more dilute while you're feeling away. See, this is going under that, isn't it? That's going under that, so you see the line gets thicker. That goes under, this goes under that, so it gets a bit thicker at the bottom. When you have a valley like that, often you sort of go thin, thick, thin, but like a seagull. Seagull's wings. The bottom of the valley. These are actually little hairs rather than shadows, so they can be a stronger black. So these are shadows rather than lines. You don't want to sort of do a line around the outside. So these that are broken up into sections, they reinforce the forms. So likewise there, it's not just one continual line, is it? It's just a little shadow underneath each of those forms. That's not joined to that. So you go like that, and like that. So it's dried now, so let's go to a pure, virtually a pure white. You'll find with titanium white, it's quite strong when you put it on, but it's going to get lighter as it dries, which is quite nice really. You can see where you're going, but it's going to become more subtle as it dries. These are divided into two, aren't they, these final highlights normally. One longer than the other. Well, if they're not divided into two, it's to the side, you see here. It's off to the side. That white's them. So make sure you let the previous layer show through. So don't let these cover that. Don't let this cover that. So you let each tone and let the previous tone sort of breathe out the sides. So they get longer as they go downwards. That's closer than that. No, they're the same. So. Sometimes you'll be using an S shape, sometimes a squiggle like that. Look closely to see if it's sort of too convex and a concave. You need to go in to establish the penultimate one more there. I'll put that in. And then you might find that if when everything dries, one layer's got lost a bit, like you might find the second to last layer is sort of disappeared a bit. So then you can go over that and re-establish them. Then you've got to put your highlights in. So it's sort of forwards and backwards to some extent. And first, that's how you want it. So that white's disappeared in there, so we go back to it. You can probably afford to use a pure white for the last one. It will mix in with what's underneath and won't end up being a harsh white. Okay, that's the general idea, and just keep doing it until it's all right. So no underpainting really, just more the proplasmos technique.
Thank you.